Hello everyone, this is an advanced guide to Dominion Tower. If you're looking for the basic information on Dominion Tower, including how to get the fastest boss kills per hour, or how to unlock the requirements to get to the top of the tower, take a look at the video in the annotations here. It's a link to MrCvbgn's Dominion Tower guide. He does a very good job of explaining the best way to get everything unlocked, and the fastest methods to kill all the bosses. But if you're here for the fastest Dominion factor per hour, which is used for getting item rewards and experience, as well as being shown on the high scores, then you're in the right place. Before I get too far along in this video, I'd like to mention that I had help making this video from Denton and Woox. Tom, Denton, helped me with a lot of feedback and tips for a variety of bosses, and Woox showed me that certain bosses that I had previously thought were impossible to do were actually possible. So now the table of contents. You can also look at this in the description, and I've got all the times listed for the different sections, so it's easy to skip around to see what you want. First of all, why do people do Dominion Tower? The first reason is just to unlock the rewards. You can get the Goliath gloves or Dreadnips. Those are the only two good ones, really. Goliath gloves are pretty much like a free whip that does crush, and Dreadnips are just a nice little extra bonus for combat. Besides those, people do Dominion Tower to unlock all the rewards. Some people do it for Dominion Factor, although not a whole lot. Dominion Factor goes on the high scores. And then some people do it, although not many again, some people do it for experience rewards. You get decent combat experience per hour, and with the update this coming Tuesday probably, they're going to be upgrading the combat experience. I've got on the screen here a list of the experience that you can get per hour for doing Dominion Tower. On the right side of the screen here, I'll put the Dominion Factor experience rewards when I know what it is after they update it. You also get item rewards. You get bones and ammo and some runes, and it comes out to about 100 to 200k per hour. Another reason that people might do Dominion Tower is for the challenge, to get to a highest floor as possible in either climber or endurance mode, and I'll be talking a bit about how to get to the highest floor in climber mode, but since Woox already maxed out the floors in endurance mode, I put a link to his video here on the screen. It's in the description as well. There isn't really much point in me talking about how to get to the max endurance floor. Next, I'm going to talk about different types of gear that you can use. Personally, I like using just normal melee gear for most of it. I also bring Ganodermic legs and Pernix traps. For switches, I use a Nezi helm over a Torva helm since it doesn't give any negative mage or range offense. Denton, who's rank 1 in Dominion Tower, I'm rank 2, he uses Void. Personally, I don't really like using Void because, first of all, you don't get very much defense at all, and the extra offense that you get, in my opinion, isn't worth the bother about having to worry about the no shield or no plate body handicaps. I don't even bring a shield or plate body because they don't help a whole lot, and when you get those handicaps they get unequipped anyway. You can also use Goliath gloves with normal gear, which is helpful for bosses like Flambeed and Flambeed, who unequip your weapons, so you'd normally have to mage them. It's also helpful when you have the slippery fingers handicap, because when your weapon gets unequipped, it's better to use Goliath gloves to hit for that one hit, rather than just punching with your fist. And also things like, this goes along with what I said before about just having extra defense in general, but the Ganodermic legs are very nice for maging because you get a whole lot of melee defense with them. The next thing to look at is the type of inventory that you want, and I've got a picture of my inventory up here. You need to have all of the elemental spells definitely for the bosses that require them, like the Dagannoth Mothers. I use overloads, but I know not everyone will use them. The reason that overloads are good is because you can use brews with them and heal without having to worry about repotting. Another reason you want to use brews is because that way you don't have to worry about the no food handicap, you only have to worry about the no potion handicap. If you bring food and extremes, then you have to worry about both of those handicaps, so I recommend overloads and Sarah brews. You can also either decide between normal Sarah brews or Dominion Sarah brews. The Dominion brews you get for free when you beat a bunch of floors, so they're a nice cheap choice. But the problem with them is they only have 2 doses apiece, and they don't leave vials in your inventory, and I'll talk more about the vials later. You should also always bring an anti-poison plus, a super restore, and a super anti-fire. If you can't use super anti-fire, then normal's alright as well. That's just for Elvarg, who you don't get all that often. And then for weapon choice, between Dominion weapons and Chaotix, I'd choose Chaotix because then you don't have to worry about the power-ups handicap, and you don't have to worry about them degrading on you because they do degrade relatively quickly. You should also always be on normal magics. Some bosses do switch you to normal magics, but not all of them do, so if you get the Dagannoth Mothers and you're on Lunars, you're in a bit of trouble there. Now I'm going to talk about some general strategies that almost always work and should help a lot. The first one is keeping a full inventory prevents the slippery fingers handicap from unequipping your weapon, and one tip to keep a full inventory is to keep it all full except to unequip your ammo and aura, so that way you can re-equip them if you need to do something like pick up the stake and stake hammer for the Count Draenor boss, or if you need to pick up Balmung for the Dagannoth Mother 2, you can equip your ammo and pick up the sword, and then your inventory is still full, so slippery fingers won't bother you. You can also use a gem bag or coal bag and just take out the items from it to keep your inventory full, so that's helpful. Also, when you have the random daze and freeze handicaps, they make you stop attacking when they activate, so just spam click on bosses pretty much. That's the easiest way to avoid them. Another tip is that the Excalibur and Staff of Light special attacks work even if the no spec handicap is on. I'm not sure if that's a bug, but since Dominion Tower's been out for about 3 months now and they haven't fixed it, I'm going to say that it's not a bug. It's been reported multiple times, so yeah, I'd say it's fine to do that. Also, you can use the Livesaver handicap to do special attacks twice, or 4 times depending on how much of the spec bar they take up. The Livesaver handicap restores special energy, prayer, and health, so if you use up your specs and then you get to low health and let it boost your health again, you can spec again. You can also use the Dominion medallion to restore your stats. It boosts your stats by 4 levels until you upgrade it. Once you make it into a super Dominion medallion, then it boosts by 8. So if you take it off and put it back on a bunch of times, it will boost your stats back up if they're drained. That's useful for bosses like Karamel and other ones that drain your stats, especially if potions are off and you can't use your super restore. One other tip is if you're having trouble with a boss, you can save spot and log out, and that'll let you restart the fight. You can't save spot on every boss, but you can on quite a lot of them. You can save spot by going behind pillars or just running really far away and staying away from it until you can log out. This isn't really a tip for killing bosses, but you don't get any of the Class A bosses, which are Zenevivia, Pest Queen, Monkey Trio, Decaying Avatar, or the Dagannoth Mother 2, or Nomad. You don't get them in floors 1 to 5, only in 6+, and you also don't get Nomad in Climber mode, so you don't have to worry about that. If you want to go bank, you kill a boss and you know that you need to go bank right afterwards, or you want to go reset the boss count and collect your rewards, you can spam click on the minimap right as the boss fight ends, and that will let you skip the roll for the next boss and just go to the bank. One tip if you're going just for Dominion factor on the high scores and you don't care about the experience or item rewards in game is that dying doesn't actually reduce your Dominion factor on the high scores. Whenever you kill the boss, it adds that Dominion factor that you gain to the high scores, so dying doesn't reduce it. So if all you want is Dominion factor on high scores, then you can go ahead and take risks, and yeah, it doesn't matter for you. One other thing is that you should quick chat your boss kills when you begin, and remember to go get Goliath gloves every 75 kills, because the face in the Dominion Tower only can store up to 15 Goliath gloves or Dreadnips at once, and you can also buy Ascendancy Mines every 500 kills. So just quick chat your boss kills and know when you need to go check. This next tip is for people who are going for the maximum dominion factor. It's when to leave early. So when I'm going for the maximum dominion factor, I always skip the Pest Queen, Monkey Trio, and Decaying Avatar. So if I get those, I go to the chest, I get my dominion factor rewards, and then I start from floor 1 again. I recommend skipping Zenevivia if you don't have prayer on, because she hurts quite a lot. And if you have prayer on, but you don't have potions and you have all the other handicaps and prayer is your last one, then it's possible to kill her, definitely, but it's risky and it would take a while, so I'd probably just skip her there. If you get the Dagannoth Mother too, you could skip her, but she's definitely possible to do with all handicaps. You'll have to use Phoenix necklaces, which we'll talk about later, and it's a little bit difficult, but yeah, that's doable. You pretty much always want to stop at floor 23. At 23 you have all the handicaps on, so bosses after that are going to be really difficult, and chances are you'd only be able to do that one boss, so it's not really worth doing a slow boss on that really last floor, since you're not going to be able to get any more done after it anyway. And also risking dying isn't good, because dying in a high floor in Climber, you lose most of your dominion factor. You go from around 220 to 250k factor all the way down to 60 or 70k, so it's a huge loss. I also skip all the desert treasure bosses if I get them in the first 4 floors, because generally they take a minute or two and you might as well just start over at that point. You usually just get really fast easy bosses at the start. Another little thing to note is that you can't skip bosses if you get them on the first floor. In Climber mode, with Endurance, you can do that, but in Climber mode, you're stuck with whatever you get on the first floor. Now I'm going to talk about the handicaps that you can get in Dominion Tower. First of all, the handicaps are always listed in the same order, so knowing that order, or at least parts of it, can be very helpful. For example, I know that Monster Stun is always below No Familiar, which is below No Prayer, so if I wanted to skip Monster Stun, but I already had No Familiar, then I know that that would go to No Prayer next. Just after doing Dominion Tower for a bit, you'll get a good feel of what handicaps are in what order, but at the start it's sort of difficult to do that. The 2 worst handicaps to get are No Potions and No Prayer. You should always avoid those 2 until the end, and if you're using food instead of potions, food instead of Cerebrews, then you should avoid no food as well. No Prayer isn't as bad as No Potions if you're using Cerebrews, because you can still heal a lot more with brews. So if those are your last 2 handicaps, you should get rid of No Prayer first in most cases. The No Shield and No Plate Body handicaps you can ignore completely if you're not using Void. If you're using Void, then you have to worry about those, but I don't like using Void, so don't worry about them. The Monster Stun and Livesaver handicaps, you'd think those are really good handicaps to have. They stun the monster and one heals you, but you should try and avoid them, because all of the handicaps give either plus or minus dominion factor in every single round, and Monster Stun and Livesaver both give about negative 200. They give negative 190 for Monster Stun, negative 200 for Livesaver, and that really adds up, because if you get them in floor 1 or 2, then by the time you get to floor 20, that's negative 4k dominion factor, and if you get both of them on lower floors, then that's a lot. Not to mention that if you skip them, you could get other handicaps which give you bonus dominion factor. The No Food handicap and Random Daze handicaps both give the most extra dominion factor per round at 120 for No Food and 110 for Random Daze. So if you were to switch from Monster Stun and go to No Food instead, you'd be getting an extra 310 dominion factor per round, which really adds up. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing handicaps. Once you get past floor 10 or something, it's more of a bother than it's worth to worry about which handicaps give more points, but if you're in the first couple floors, definitely keep an eye on that. I've put a link in the description to the RS Wiki page that shows the list of all of the handicaps in the order that they appear in, as well as all of the positive and negative dominion factor bonuses that they give. So take a look at that if you need more information. This next section is about specific strategies for different bosses. I'm not going to list all of the bosses because lots of them are really easy and you just 2-spec them with claws, or you just melee them, but there are some little tips that will make bosses a little bit faster, and it adds up if you do it over time. The first boss I'm going to talk about is the Everlasting and the Illusive. As you can see in this clip, they're quite easy to kill with no handicaps on. You just claw spec and yeah, they die really fast. But if specs and familiar are off, so you can't claw or tighten them, I recommend attacking the Everlasting, and then whenever the Illusive pops up, hit it once with a fast weapon like a rapier, and then hit it with a second more powerful weapon before it digs, because you only have enough time to get in 2 hits. But if you do a rapier then a maul hit, you can get in more damage than you would with just 2 rapier hits. So not a huge tip, but it does add up. Next is the Dagannoth Sentinels. You can hide underneath them so that only one of them attacks you. It also prevents them from healing each other, so not much to that, just stand underneath and attack. You can also use a Titan or another familiar to attack either of them and it won't make them heal. The desert treasure bosses are more interesting. You have to trap them in a line, otherwise you'll get owned really badly. As you can see, I ran towards them and then I started running south to trap them in a line. You want Decius on the bottom because he can teleport to you, so if you trap him somewhere else it won't work. Once you get them trapped in a line, if you've still got the familiars out, you should go and kill Flambeed with your Steel Titan specs. Continue to rapier Decius. You don't want to Steel Titan Decius, otherwise he'll do an attack that always does 100 damage on you, which doesn't work very well. If they get out of line, you just move like I just did there till they get into line. Crush attacks seem to work better on Karamel. I'm not sure why, but use Crush on him. And as you can see, there was a little bug here. The first item in the top left slot of your inventory gets dropped on the ground if you've got a full inventory and you attack Flambeed. So yeah, be careful with that. I think it's a new bug because I don't remember seeing it before. But yeah, anyway, I just finished rapiering Damus's first form and then melee with a maul. Not much to it really. The main trick to killing these guys is the trapping at the beginning. You can't use protection prayers against Decius or Karamel because they'll do extra other attacks that always hit, but you can use melee protect against Damus and Flambeed. The next boss is the Dagannoth Mother 2. There's not much to do in this one really. You should keep in mind that its melee attack can hit around 400 damage, so be careful. I usually just push tank, which is just doing one hit and then standing under it so that it has to move and then doing another hit and just repeating that. You can also hide behind the pillars like I'm doing in this video. For Zenevivia, you can use a Steel Titan to attack her, which makes her move between pillars. I'm not sure why it does that. It could be a bug, I don't really know. But that will make her go from pillar to pillar really quickly so that you can attack her at the end and do damage much more easily. There also aren't fires in the southwest corners of the statues. Even if she tries to put fire on the ground there, it doesn't work, so that's a nice little safe spot. If you protect Mage and stand there, you can't be hurt. For Elvarg, make sure you anti-fire. I've got a clip here of what happens if you don't. Within 2 hits, your stats are pretty much nothing, so you need to anti-fire. If you don't anti-fire before you go in, make sure you spam click it as the fight begins, and that'll be fine. For the Balance Elemental, you can anticipate what attacks it does. It always starts out with range attacks. It does a few range attacks as I'm showing here, and then it switches to magic for 1 hit. So if you keep range protect on, then it'll keep maging you, but if you switch to mage protect and then let it do its 1 hit and then switch back to range protect, then it usually just keeps ranging you and you can kill it pretty easily that way. You should also take note that its random magic attack drains your stats, so if you still have, if you're overloaded, then it doesn't matter much, but if you don't have overloads on, then yeah, you need to be careful of that. The Golem Trio, yeah, it's a really easy boss, but I thought I'd just mention that you can use a Steel Titan to attack the Black Golem, because a Steel Titan's range attack is actually counted as a melee crush attack. It's sort of weird, but that's how it is. It also interesting to note that that's why the Steel Titan does so well against Water Fiends in the Chaos Tunnels, because it uses a crush attack. Also for the Golem Trio, you can use the different attack styles on claws to kill the slash and stab ones. Just something to keep in mind. For the Untouchable, it's not a hard boss either, but it does have pretty significant melee defense. Luckily it has almost no mage defense, so you can kill it with mage very easily. Also, the next three bosses are in the same boat as that. The Giant Scarab, Black Knight Guardian, and Karamel are all incredibly weak to the Polypore Staff. They're actually not weak to normal magic as far as I can tell. It's just something about the Polypore Staff that just destroys them. So, especially Karamel. Karamel has really good defense normally, so use Polypore on her. And that pretty much covers it for all of the information you need to get the maximum Dominion factor per hour for training, or just for the Dominion factor on the high scores. So now I'm going to talk about strategies for getting to as high a floor as possible. The problem with getting to higher floors is that you have all the handicaps on, and then you get a hard boss on floor 23 every single time. Perhaps not if you haven't done any of the quests for them, but for normal accounts you'll always get a hard boss on floor 23 and you'll have all the handicaps at that point. You should also know that a lot of these strategies are not foolproof and they depend quite a bit on luck. The bosses still can KO you even if you do everything right. So the main trick for beating bosses with all handicaps on is using Phoenix necklaces as your method of healing. Phoenix necklaces are enchanted diamond necklaces, and what they do is they heal you by 30% of your maximum health if you drop to below 20% of the maximum. So using Nex Armors using Nex Armors will increase the amount that they heal, and they'll make you get healed at a higher health, so you don't have to risk as much. But Nex Armors aren't necessary for this stuff, they just help a little bit. Besides Phoenix necklaces, you can also use a Ring of Vigor to make your Excalibur spec more often. You can also switch to Lunars for the Cure Poison and for Venge, although Venge doesn't work on certain bosses, including Decaying Avatar and Zenevivia. And you also need normal magics for the Dagannoth Mom too. You can also use auras. The Vampirism aura is probably the best one because you can get healed without needing anything else. The Poison Purge aura, which makes poison heal you, is also very good because then you don't even need to deal with Lunars. You just get healed from the poison. One other tip is to use a Steel Titan or Iron Titan or Wolpertinger. Even though the familiar handicap is on, you still get their inherent defense bonuses. The Steel Titan is 15% melee defense, Iron Titan is 10%, and Wolpertinger is 5% magic defense. And the last general strategy is to use the Dominion medallion over any other necklace because it boosts all of your combat stats by 8 levels, and it can also act as the stat restore if you equip it and unequip it a lot. Just make sure to remember to switch to Phoenix necklaces when you get to lower health. The first boss with all handicaps that I'm going to talk about are the Desert Treasure bosses. It's pretty much the same as before, you just have to trap them slightly differently, but it's pretty similar. You definitely want to trap them in the same order, or at least a similar order as before. Use Rapier on Decius and then Maul on Karamel. But then, instead of meleeing Ferried up close, you should trap him on Damus. So you run through both of them, take a couple extra steps, and then go and turn around and start maging Ferried. So yeah, that's one place where you definitely want to be using Ganodermic traps so you don't get hurt much by Damus's melee attacks. Make sure you use water spells on Ferried as well. Then when it's only Damus left, just melee the first form as usual. But then on the second form, you'll want to trap it and mage it from long range because it does have pretty high melee defense. You can kill it, but it uses up a lot of Phoenix necklaces and it's not really worth it, and there's still a chance of dying. So yeah, just entangle, step back, mage. It's pretty easy really. The Decaying Avatar is among the slowest bosses. but on the other hand, it's also relatively easy, and there isn't all that much risk of dying if you do it right. The first thing that you have to do is just trap it along the western side of the arena. The trick is to trap it next to where it's going to eat the root that comes out. The roots come out first of all in the northwest part of the arena, then the northeast, then the south. So you trap it on the western side of the arena, then you wait a little bit and keep getting its health down, and then a root will come out, it'll eat it, as you can see there. It heals back to full health, and then you keep hitting it, and eventually it'll go off and run to the northeastern part of the arena. When it does that, you want to run to the south of the arena. So while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm just going to talk about the strategy that I use to not get KO'd. I like using Staff of Light because then it halves its damage and it can't KO me. The only trick is that if you don't have a full inventory, Slippery Fingers can make you unequip your Staff of Light, which will then let you get KO'd. So just be careful to keep a full inventory. After you trap it along the bottom like that, there really isn't much left. You just have to keep ranging it with Ruby Bolts and wait until it eats the last root along the south there, heals back to full health one more time, and then you just keep ranging it till it's dead. And it's just a long, slow fight, but it's not that hard. The trapping along the edge strategy isn't exclusive to the Decaying Avatar. You can also use it for a lot of other bosses. I think these Recipe for Disaster bosses are a good example because there are 3 of them, and being able to trap them and doing them one by one is very helpful. It's also cool because they're all different sizes, so you can trap them and get them one by one much more easily. So once they become unstunned at the start, you just run all the way to an edge of the arena and run along the side to trap them. Just kill Dessourt first, and then the banana guy, and then I may leave Flambeed in here, but you can also mage him. Both work fine. One note for the banana guy, Agrith Nana, is that I find that slash works much better on them. I don't really know why. I guess you slice bananas rather than stab them, but anyway, yeah, slash them. Other bosses that are good to trap are Barrelchest, because he hurts a surprising amount for what you'd expect. You can also trap the armadillo guy, Toktz-Ket-Dill, but you can't actually attack him from long distance because range and mage don't work on him. But if you get low on health, you can wait along the edge till your Excalibur spec comes back. The Dagannoth Mother 2 is one of the Class A bosses, which really isn't all that hard to do with all handicaps. The only thing that you have to be careful for is that its melee attack can hit over 400 damage, so you can easily get KO'd through Phoenix necklaces with that. Other than that, there isn't really much to it. This was a particularly lucky kill that I filmed, but in general it's not too hard. I wasn't really sure whether to include Elvarg in here, but I thought I'd mention it just so people didn't die by mistake. You can't use your Super Anti-Fire Potion for Elvarg for all handicaps, so it has Monster Stun, but if the Monster Stun wears off, then there's a decent chance that you'll die. So if you do about 4 hits with a Rapier and you don't have it just about dead, you should just log off immediately and log back in and you can restart the fight. So just keep doing that until you get it. The strategies for the next 2 bosses are pretty similar. It's the Ice Demon and the Balance Elemental. The Ice Demon, for both of them, you just range them. Make sure to do your Excalibur specs and to bring Lunars if you want to, I guess, to cure poison. Just stand next to them because their melee attacks are pretty weak, and just range them. You can also try meleeing, but you're better off using high mage defense, cure, and ranging. Also, one nice thing about both of them is that you can hide behind the pillars and log out to reset the fight if you need to. Also, the Balance Elemental's a bit harder, not only because it's just a more powerful creature, but also because it has a special attack that drains your stats. So in order to regenerate stats, you want to put on and take off the Dominion medallion a bunch, but if you're doing that, you need to be really careful that you don't get KO'd, because you don't have a Phoenix necklace on at that time. In this video I get very close to dying. but I was lucky and he didn't hit me. So yeah, they're not too hard, just range and Phoenix Necklace and get lucky. Zenevivia is probably the easiest of what I'd like to call the pretty much impossible Dominion Tower trio. And yeah, so Zenevivia, you start out and make sure you do Excalibur spec and heal your poison. You have to hide behind the pillar here and keep avoiding the fires. So what happens with the fires is they don't appear in the spot that they were previously. So if you move onto a spot right before the fire goes away and switches spots, you'll be pretty much safe from it. You can get frozen in one spot from the random freeze, but usually it's not too bad. When the wise old man stops hitting Zenevivia, you need to attack her and it'll make her teleport to the next pillar. When she gets to about half health, she stops getting hurt by him at all, and then you've just got to finish her from there. So when she's on the pillar, you have to switch between mage and range every single attack, and when she's on the ground you can just range. Pretty much it's a lot of luck. She can KO you pretty much at any time because her max hit's around 250 or 260 I believe. So yeah, hopefully we'll get lucky, but if not, that's just how it is. When she's on the far pillar over there, you can stand on the southwest of the statue and not get hit at all because the fires don't appear on the southwest corners of the statues. I would definitely recommend bringing the max mage defense gear just so hopefully she'll splash a little bit more. I use Onyx bolts. You'll spend about 40 of them per fight, which is about 300k, and I used about 20 Phoenix necklaces in this fight, which is another 300k, so it's a pretty expensive fight. But if you're going to try and get to the highest floor possible in Dominion Tower, that's what you've got to do. Anyway, I'm just going to skip the end of this clip because it's all the same, just attacking with different textiles and then just ranging when she's on the ground. The next boss in the trio of really hard bosses is the Pest Queen. I should say first of all that I've never actually beaten the Pest Queen myself, although I know people who have. I know that Woox and Denton have both been able to beat her. Perhaps I'm just getting unlucky when I did my tests, but anyway. You should focus on melee defense because her mage attack hits 100% of the time, and also if you can get next armors you should try and wear them here because if you don't, her melee attack can KO you through Phoenix necklaces, but if you wear next armor it can't KO you. If you have the Poison Purge aura, it's incredibly useful here because not only does the poison heal you instead of hurt you, but you can also bring 2 extra Phoenix necklaces instead of the lunar runes for the cure poison spell. Other than that, just try standing in melee distance. I bring a crossbow so I can attack the defilers as soon as they appear. If you don't attack them immediately, they start killing the little void rangers, and then the little drones that heal the Pest Queen stay alive, and it just doesn't work out well for you. So you need to attack the defilers as soon as possible, and then kill them as soon as possible as well, because they do enough extra damage on you that you might run out of food if you don't kill them. They can also combo hit you with the Pest Queen's damage and KO you, even if you're next armors with Phoenix necklaces. And the last tip is just to stand on the north side of the Pest Queen. That way her melee attacks don't hurt the little void knights and the other knights who are standing on the south side of her. And then, yeah, it's a lot about luck with this boss. As I said, haven't been able to kill her. Maybe if I tried a few more times I'd get lucky and be able to do it. But it's a difficult boss. The Monkey Trio is easily the most difficult boss in Climber mode, and I'd say it's more difficult than Nomad, so that would make it the most difficult boss in Dominion Tower, but that's a matter of opinion. And with all handicaps, it's nearly impossible. I haven't come anywhere close to beating it. Woox managed to beat it using a Zerite bow and popping out from behind the pillar and attacking, but That's pretty much the basic strategy. You have to attack them one at a time, trapping them behind the pillars. It's also helpful again to use Poison Purge to heal the poison and have the extra inventory space, as well as a strategy that could take a long time but pretty much guarantees you a win, which is using the lunar spell Dream plus a regen bracelet to restore your health. So whenever you get low on health, you just go behind the pillar, turn on Dream, and you just wait until your health restores. So normally when you start out, you want to trap the green one first and kill it, and then you do the blue one and then the red one. You can also time the random daze handicap to when they attack, because for some reason the random daze handicap makes their attacks not hit. So if you see in the chat that you are about to be dazed, you can run out, attack it, and if you time it right, then you won't get hurt when the random daze effect kicks in. It's very easy to get KO'd on these bosses, even if you do everything right. They do two hit spots at once, and it can hit quite high. But if you time the random daze exactly right, then yeah, it's possible to do them. If I can find someone who has a video of killing these guys with all handicaps on, I will put a link to their video in the annotations, so take a look at that if there's one there. This next section is just theoretical. As far as I know, there's no account like this that exists so far, but the basic idea behind it is creating an account that has only done certain quests so that the difficult Dominion Tower bosses haven't been unlocked yet. On the screen here I have a list of all of the 38 quests that can be completed to do Dominion Tower. You only need to do 20 out of them. The quests are all listed in the description as well, so you don't need to read them off of here. Now I've removed the 15 quests, which I believe the bosses aren't worth doing. With this list of 23 quests, you can do 20 of them. You can do more than that if you'd like as well, but only 20 are required to use Dominion Tower. Besides the quest requirement, you also need to have 110 combat, so I'd recommend having good melee stats since you don't really need ranger mage for these. Other than that, there isn't really anything else. You just go to climber mode, and with an account like this you'd be getting amazing Dominion factor per hour. In climber mode you start out getting about 5k Dominion factor per floor, and by the time you get to floor 20 you get about 25k per floor, so it increases quite a bit, and it probably keeps increasing like that. There isn't any data on higher floors because no one's really done them as far as I know. So you just keep doing climber and you keep getting more Dominion factor. One thing to note is that Dominion factor caps at 1 mil Dominion factor, so once you get to a certain floor you'll have to stop. In endurance mode I believe it's floor 177 that you reach 1 mil Dominion factor at, but it'll be much sooner than that in climber mode. If anyone does make an account like this, or they know someone who might have already done so, definitely give me a message on YouTube and I'll put in some information in the annotations to link to your account. The second to last section in this video is bugs to avoid. Dominion Tower has a lot of bugs and they don't seem to be getting fixed very often. Perhaps that'll change when they come out with the Dominion Tower boss, but for now just look in the description. I'll keep an updated list of bugs as up to date as I possibly can. So if anyone finds Dominion Tower bugs that people should want to avoid, I'll put them there. There are things like items getting dropped that aren't supposed to be dropped, just little tips to speed up the tower. Like there's a bug where if you're using a Steel Titan, sometimes the monsters will be stuck at 0 health and you have to wait for them to regenerate to 1 so that then you can hit them again and kill them. Just little bugs like that. Look in the description and I'll have a list of bugs there. Here's a link to another video that just has the unedited footage of all of the boss kills. Not any of the really easy ones, but the ones that were somewhat difficult I got some footage for. I'll also put on screen here annotations to videos of other people doing Dominion Tower. Any special fights that you guys want to show, just special kills, maybe doing all handicaps, maybe getting to the highest floors you can do. I'll put some links to whatever you guys want in the video here. And that's everything. That's as much as I know about Dominion Tower. and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. I'll see if I need to redo this guide when they come out with the Dominion Tower boss, but if not, I hope you guys can use it for better experience after they upgrade the rewards, and I hope it's been useful for you. Thanks for watching.